Hello, and welcome to the Wine Enthusiast Podcast, your serving of drinks culture and the people who drive it. I'm JC Tops, and this week we're discussing work-life balance in the wine world. Is there such a thing, or are there marketing buzzwords? If it does exist, what does it look like in wine? Particularly, what does it look like for women in wine? I sat down with Rebecca Hopkins to find out. Rebecca is a PR and communications specialist who has worked in wine for nearly 30 years. And in 2018, she launched A Balanced Glass, an online resource providing tools to maintain a healthy lifestyle while working in the beverage industry. So listen on as we try to define work-life balance and examine what it might look like for those of us in the food and beverage sector. Every glass of wine tells a story. These stories reveal hidden histories, flavors, and passions, and sometimes they unravel our darkest desires. In Wine Enthusiast's newest podcast, Vinfamous, journalist Ashley Smith dissects the underbelly of the wine world. We hear from the people who know what it means when the products of love and care become the source of greed, arson, and even murder. Each episode takes listeners into the mysterious and historic world of winemaking and the crimes that have since become vinfamous. This podcast pairs well with wine lovers, history nerds, and crime junkies alike. So, grab a glass of your favorite wine and follow the podcast to join us as we delve into the twists and turns behind the all-time most shocking wine crimes. Follow Vinfamous on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen, and be sure to follow the show so you never miss a scandal. New episodes drop every other Wednesday. Hi, I'm JC Tops, assistant editor here at Wine Enthusiast. This week, we're discussing work-life balance in the wine business. Is there such a thing? And if there is, what does that look like? My guest today is Rebecca Hopkins, who I'm so excited to have. I like to call Rebecca the wine sales and marketing guru. She has worked in the wine industry for an extremely long time. I'm sure she'll tell you how long. But I met her when she was working with Charles Heisig Champagne and Michael Mondavi Family Estate. But in 2018, Rebecca founded and launched A Balanced Glass, which is an online community providing tools to maintain a healthy lifestyle while working in the beverage industry. So I'm so happy to have her. Welcome, Rebecca.
Good morning, JC. Thank you. Wow, what an introduction. Huh. I gotta go I gotta go study up on my guru isms. But thank you.
That's
Thanks
what
for
I like
having
to
me.
call you. So, how long have you been in the wine industry? Please tell our listeners how you got into the wine industry.
Yeah, I think it's longer than I like to admit. So I actually grew up in Australia and I started studying wine. I grew up in McLaren Vale in South Australia and I started studying wine in the early 90s. And really started at the ground level studying and then working in tasting room in McLaren Vale, and then slowly moved through roles that were marketing assistant, sales and marketing manager, and finally landing on kind of the communication side of the business in 2000, and have really been there since then. First of all with Hardy Wine Company, or now Accolade Wines, and then in 2007 I was when I moved to the US with Constellation Brands, and have been here ever since. And to your point, in 2012, I joined the Michael Mondavi family and was with them for 10 years, and just recently left that to do my own thing. So it's been a pretty wild ride, always connected back to wine, really from the production side. I was a failed geologist. My dad always laughs because that's what I wanted to be. And wine was kind of my way back to, the growing, the soil, the topography, the history. And so, yeah, Dad and I still laugh about that. So here I am.
I'm so happy that you're a part of the industry. I love working with you.
Thank
And
you.
I love following your blog, A Balanced Glass, because
Mm-hmm.
it's so informative. Why did you start that community, number one?
if I think back on it, really, when I moved to the US, I came from working in a really, a big role in Australia and had spent half my career in a country, honestly, that has really socialized healthcare. It has lots of access to nature, and a lot of things where you can find your own sense of well-being. And I came to the US and landed this big corporate role and lost all of my support systems and my mechanisms of keeping myself on the narrow. Plus, I was in a new world of, working for a publicly listed company, traveling a ton, managing a big team, always out, and really losing my way to cope. And so I started kind of fumbling around in the dark, found myself an extraordinary yoga teacher that I still call myself level one after 16 years, still can't touch my toes, and kind of fumbled my own way through. And then I went to a conference directed at, helping women advance in the industry in 2016. And I found that no one was talking about alcohol. We weren't talking about how to navigate the industry with our own health and well-being. Lots of talk about equity, lots of talk about opportunity of career advancement, but really nothing about alcohol. So I did, I think, probably what, as a writer, you would do. I got really mad and I wrote an article that ended up being published in Meininger, which is a European wine business magazine, about the challenges of working in a profession steeped in alcohol. Why didn't we talk about it? Why are we so shrouded about it? What are the impacts that it has on those of us who work around it every day? And that raised such a response. There was a follow-up article. So this is still 2017. And so then in 2018, I'm like, Houston, we have a problem. We got something we need to talk about. And so I really launched it because I figured if I was feeling that way, other people would be feeling like that too. And we also have to remember that, we're talking about something, i.e. alcohol, that really is at odds with the concept of health for a lot of people. And I think no more than what we see today about the conversation around whether it's sober curious, moderation, no alc, low alc, health and alcohol is a really hot topic. And I also found that in our community, as so many of us know, I've been someone who's been privileged to have access to healthcare here, but a lot of people just don't have that. They don't have access to the basic tools. We're not in a community that could talk about the challenges we face. It's not the easiest industry to understand because from the outside it looks, fabulous. But there are some real challenges that we have that I just wanted to create a space that was accessible for people, that we could have these conversations. And so that's why I got mad. I wrote something down. I got a response and thought, heck, why not?
That's great. I mean, I came up with this idea because I am experiencing the same thing. Is there such thing as work-life balance? I've kind of been overdoing it lately, just trying to be 115%. But,
Mm.
like, why do I need to be 115% all of the time? Is I think
Mm-hmm.
so. Let me ask you: is there a such thing as work-life balance, or is this like a marketing term?
Oh, it's a marketing term.
Okay.
Period. But I think, what you're saying, let's just get that out. I think what you're saying,
Okay.
though, is, you just said it, right? You're going at 115%, and which means at some point you're going to hit 85 and probably much lower. And as humans, right, we're in a constant state of change. So any form of balance is fleeting. It's totally fleeting. And so um, I had a teacher who used to say, we're all dying, so we need to learn how to live.
Oh, wow.
But right? And you go, huh, it's actually true.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think, right, when we think about the concept of balance, it really is so. There's two things. One, it's fleeting. It's never constant. No one can ever run at 150% because at some point something's going to give. And also, I think work-life balance as a concept is really only realistic when basic needs are being met.
Mhm.
And I think we can look to other countries where we may see, more of it. For example, in Australia or Europe, where there's socialized medicine support, there's access to nature, there's outdoors. But really, when we think about it, right, it's financial safety. I think just the stress of living in that is an enormous stress of finding balance. Access to healthy food, clean drinking water, things like that are just such hindrances, right? They're very real limitations to even finding a concept of balance. So then on top of that, you throw in our industry, and you and I have been at the same parties, and even if you are the best, moderated, meditating, yogi person that has everything together, there's stuff around you that's always going to impact your environment.
Right.
And I think, sure, we can have self moderation, or as I think, like looking after our physical and mental well being, but there's always going to be environments that we're in that are going to knock us off of our center point. And also, we're in an industry that doesn't necessarily want to encourage work life balance. And this is a controversial kind of aspect, right? Because we're in the business of selling and marketing and making and growing and promoting wine. And that is by nature a hospitable industry where we will be around and have access to, again, late nights, long travel, working in the fields, or being, on the production side where your hours are incredibly long and incredibly physical. So yeah, yes, it's jargon. And it's actually why I called a balanced glass a balanced glass, because I do believe it's at every moment of every time you're trying to find your way. And that was very intentional, when I kind of came up with the name.
Okay. Great. So, what does trying to have a balanced life, basically within our industry? Does that mean backing off and sometimes saying no? Because I've had to learn how to do that and say, I really want to attend this event, but I'm going to say no. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I would say that the hardest thing I've had to learn is managing my own health. And I think that on this subject, we're talking about something that is really deeply personal, which is our own health. Every person has very different parameters of what it means to have health, to have vitality, to be well. And I am always shy about, well, you should do this or take that, or because it's you have no idea what someone else is dealing with. You have no idea where people's priorities are, and it's really not your business. um, and so for me, I'll tell you personally, going around it the long way is making things a priority that I don't always love, but I have to do them. And because for me, surviving and thriving in the wine business for the long haul is about self-awareness and discipline for ourselves, which for me is, this morning before I even got out of bed, it's sit up and do your 15 minutes of meditation, because you just got to clear. For me, I have to clear my head before I can start. It's prioritizing your own health and your own rest. And I think rest and sleep are two of the most critical discussions that are always the hardest thing to make time for. And so, yeah, sure, there's the hacks of regular bedtimes and, sleep hygiene. But for me, it comes down to setting good boundaries of what I will and won't do. And sometimes I don't like my own boundaries because I miss out.
Yeah.
I miss out on stuff. And it's hard too, because when you love the business and live the business, as we do, you want to be everywhere, because let's face it, a lot of your friends are there and a lot of your community is there. And I think a big part of well-being is community. I fundamentally believe that. And it's critical that we find and stay in safe community that we can have. And, yes, days off drinking for me are important, and really finding time for that rest.
Yeah.
But again, I do, part of the reason, right, why I really try to focus on resources on a balanced glass is I don't know where you're at in your journey. I'm happy to, give you some ideas and thoughts, but it's your journey and you're on it. So,
I like what you said about just kind of like setting boundaries and taking a break
mm-hmm,
sometimes.
mm-hmm,
And, I feel like that makes sense to me. But for me, in theory, I feel like, do you like it's already hard for women in this world. especially in wine as well. Wine is definitely an industry where it's been male dominated in most departments of wine, like right in every area.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I've been kind of go, 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 go. I want to go to this event. I want to go to that training. And because I want to like have my face being shown everywhere. So I find it really hard because I feel that setting boundaries would hurt my career as a woman. Do you find that?
Mm-hmm. I do, and unfortunate, it's everything you've just talked about, right? It's we know that the top leadership is still disproportionately represented by men, by white men, and there still exists exclusionary behavior that for many of us in the community requires us to kind of keep showing up and keep shoving the door open, and slowing down can absolutely be a hindrance to that. And it's making the hard choices, and it's also having really honest conversations about what it is that we really need to do, and where it is important from a career, I call it career priority, that we can absolutely attend, say an event, for example, for you or for me, but then it's making the boundary within that experience to set and say, okay, I need to go to this event, or I need to attend this experience because here is my objective and this is what I want to get out of that. And then managing the time to kind of have that experience in as mindful way as possible. So there's 7 events this week. Okay, I'm going to do 45 minutes. These are the people I need to see. These are the hands I need to shake. These are the conversations I need to have. I know my entry plan. I know my exit plan. And I go and do that, and I stick to my boundaries around that. Because to your point, absolutely, the I'm not going because I'm not feeling well, or I'm not going because I don't feel included. I
Mhm.
don't know anyone. I mean, I think coming out of COVID, the social anxiety levels in our industry, and I dare say, I don't know, but I dare say across the world, are off the charts. We're all having to relearn ways of being together. And it's hard. And it's hard if you have family at home, you're the primary caregiver for family or relatives or your partner. Unfortunately, we don't even start at the starting gate as women, people of color, LGBTQ. We just don't have that same access. So it's a
Right.
long-winded way of saying yes. um, and it's also another long-winded way of saying that's where we have to find our allies and our people who will support us in the decisions that we make,
Right.
and the decision and the boundaries that we set. You know.
Yeah, I agree. I think another important thing too is, when our country talks about self-care, we talk about massages or spending money. But I think a lot of times
Yeah.
for me, it's just sitting at home and just watching TV, and,
Mm-hmm.
having just saying no to an event while I sit home. I don't have to always go get a pedicure or things like that. And I think that's important to talk about as well.
100%. 100%. And we have to remember the wellness industry is an industry. It's a capitalistic structure in a lot of ways. Unfortunately,
Exactly. Right.
if you peel back to the foundations of kind of self-care, they don't cost money. They take time to learn, and or they can be low cost entry if you're thinking about a breathwork technique, or you're thinking about stretching your body, or to your point, just sitting and doing something mindful in that sitting. And even if that is just staring at a screen that doesn't talk back. um, I struggle a lot with this concept of wellness in America, because I guess I've seen this since 2016 to today, that just the exponential explosion of the fact that you need a dermabrasion kit, a rose quartz facial massager, you need
Right.
45 minutes of some sound bath. I mean, geez, stop. Please
Yeah.
stop. But what we don't do is we don't teach people methods for self health and self wellness. So, again, whether that is 5 simple stretches you can do after a long shift on the floor for our industry, or okay, JC, you're sitting on the couch. Awesome, you've got your favorite blanket. Fantastic. Let's just do some deep belly breathing for 2 minutes.
Right.
Or let's just check in and do a body scan. Where are you at? Is your mind a mess? Okay, let's think about, let's do 2-minute mind clearing. Oh, you're all hyped up? Okay, let's do some box breathing to release that stress. And I do think that's important, but it's hard to learn. And again, that's, I've learned them, not very well, but I've learned them, and I'm always happy to share. And so that's why
Yeah.
there's a lot of free stuff on YouTube, but you got to know where to find it. So part of what we try to do is bring those resources in an easier place to find them.
I do. I mean, I think that's definitely one of the reasons why I like your online platform, because it's community within the industry, right? Because it's like,
Mhm.
our industry is definitely glamorized. And so to the outside
Mhm.
world, it's like people are like, oh, cry me a river. You're so tired with all of
Mhm.
your
Mhm.
champagne events and your caviar
Yep.
and your trips to Europe. So, but other people in the industry
Mhm.
know that it's still work. Yes, we are very privileged to have, great perks like that, but it's
Yeah,
still work, and it takes a lot out of you.
100%.
It takes a toll, and I think I really appreciate your take, and I really appreciate your platform.
Well, and can I add, thank you, but and can I add to that? I also see that when you are out in those environments,
Mhm.
women are judged differently for drinking.
Yes.
And there are, whether, there are many of us in the industry that are judged differently for being, our behavior is always being judged. I'll say that. We're always being observed. And it's another layer of stress that certain other parts of the industry don't have to worry about.
Right.
So, and again, when you're eating, drinking, traveling, sleeping, leaving the party early, staying at the party late, talking to this person, holding that glass, I mean, constantly being observed. And that is work.
Yeah.
It is work, yes. But there is also a layer that not everyone has to deal with.
And now a word from our sponsor. Always find what you love at Total Wine and More. With so many great bottles to choose from at the lowest price, it's easy to find your favorite Cabernet or a new one with some help from one of our friendly guides. And with every bottle comes the confidence of knowing you just found something amazing. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love and love what you find at Total Wine and More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Drink responsibly. Be 21. As far as alcohol goes, you
Mm-hmm.
know, there's this element of healthy alcohol, which obviously we know doesn't exist. Um, I think
Mm-hmm.
I think, you can have low ABV, and then that's great, and,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
let's be real, and it's not healthy. There is moderation, and I think that's great.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
How do you moderate yourself when basically there's events all the time and tastings and things of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, I would love, first of all, I think knowing more about alcohol, I think is the greatest power you can have for your own, to really understand what you're working with. And I'm just going to give a shout out to, there's a gentleman called Professor David Nutt, who's written, I think, the best book on alcohol and science, and it's called Drink. And it really breaks, he's actually, as an English, he's a professor in the UK who owns a wine bar, by the way. And he is kind of an authority on alcohol abuse and just alcohol usage and what your body does and how it behaves and the real fundamental knowledge on how your body interacts with the drink. And I love it. I'm a big reader of nonfiction on this subject, and this is the best one I've found. For me, yes, days off. I have to,
Yeah.
because I think it's also about just checking myself on what I'm doing and being honest with myself. I have a friend in the industry who marks their drinks on their wrist when they go to an event with their
Oh,
eyeliner,
wow.
just a tiny
Huh.
little mark, because, we like to lie to ourselves. We're like, it was half a glass.
Right.
It was just a cocktail, right? And I think, unfortunately, we really have to keep ourselves accountable to ourselves. And that is really, that's a big one, is literally really looking in the mirror and being like, okay, where am I at? What's my relationship really to alcohol, and how healthy is it? Sometimes mine's been great, other times it's been hellaciously bad. For those reasons you talk about, right? Never ending opportunity or volume at our kind of disposal. For me, I always eat before I leave home or the office. I always keep snacks on hand. I'm like a little squirrel. I've just got food stashed everywhere because it just helps, absorb whatever it is you're going to drink. I do track my drinks. I've had to learn, and now I do. I plan. I call them my arrival and exit strategies when I'm out in public. And I tell people if I'm with friends and I feel safe enough, and this is not always the case,
Hmm.
but I can be like, hey, I'm trying to actually drink a little less tonight. So can you just kind of keep me honest on this? So that accountability. And you need really honest friends who aren't just going to keep pouring drinks. Um,
Right. Right.
and then, for business, I very much try to find opportunity to meet with people without drinks. And, in your line of work, you have no shortage of people who want to meet with you. And I'd
Hmm.
rather do, I'd love to hang out with you for hours, but, let's do a 30-minute coffee meeting. Let's do a
Yeah.
30-minute, oh, you're going to be at this event too. Can we just step aside for a second, have a quick conversation, and then we can both get on with our day? Because to your point, it's work. Socializing is a little different. And I think what part of the challenge is that we socialize with other people in the business. And so our boundaries become very blurred because we want to be in community. We want to be with people we like. And if we're in circumstances that are not strong boundaries for ourselves or others, it can get really slippery. And then, from a food point of view, I think dinners are hard. I used to call it the steakhouse tour of the US, because you're out every
Oh,
night and you're like,
yeah.
oh, great, more ribeye. Oh, amazing. Of course, you can say no, right? In theory,
Right. In
but
theory, yeah.
you've just been, JC, you've just been flown to Georgia, and you're sitting in front of a Georgian winemaker who is thrilled that you're here and dying to show you the regional culinary foods and the wines that they've been making. And yeah, there's 7 courses sitting in front of you.
Hmm.
How do you say no, right?
Exactly.
And that's hard because politely declining food is difficult, particularly in, try saying that to an Italian. Um, and so you got to eat half your portions and move food around your plate, or I'm a big one for always having a spittoon on the table, if
Yeah.
I'm at a dinner, and having my glasses removed between, if I've tasted the wine, I have to ask people to take my glasses away. Otherwise, I will drink them because I love wine. I love it.
I love wine too. I love what we do. I think most people in the industry love wine and love every aspect of wine. It's just
Hmm.
kind of a matter of finding to make sure that we stay healthy and just thinking about our wellness, our well-being.
Yeah, and I think too, I'll come back to the comment you made about healthy quote wine or low and no. I actually think it's been an incredibly powerful consumer movement that is really, I'm going to say, forcing the industry to look at our own well-being because we can no longer deny that health is important. Well, this is the job you signed up to do. Well, actually, no, because now we're talking to a demographic, a generation that is drinking differently, if at all.
Hmm.
They're experimenting more. No alcohol is now part of conversation. And we talk about the lack of new drinkers. Well, are we maybe not having the right conversations with them?
Right.
And are we maybe not having accurate conversations? And we need these conversations to help the industry stay, financially healthy. We'll say that.
Yeah.
And so I do think that you know the low, the no, the sober curious conversations, although I bristle at a lot of it, particularly when it comes to the concept that alcohol can be healthy.
Hmm.
But I think it's forcing a lot of conversations in boardrooms and back rooms, and that we certainly weren't having 10 years ago, unless you were a progressive, you know, company that took it upon themselves from a
Yeah.
cultural point of view to make it important.
Right. Exactly.
Sure, it didn't exist in my corporate life.
So I just have one final question for you.
Yes.
When you are enjoying a glass of wine or a spirit, what's in your glass? What are you drinking?
I drink broadly wine. I don't drink, really don't drink beer. I probably have two a year. I think that's just, I don't love it. I don't love the flavor. Spirits for me, if I'm drinking, it's three things. It's either a very small grape martini or a Negroni.
Ah.
I've been enjoying Boulevardiers,
Oh, yeah.
but I try not to have alcohol after dinner, like the spirits after dinner, hard alcohol, because it's just my sleep is a mess. What's in my glass normally? What's in my fridge right now? There's always a bottle of something sparkling, or a
Yes.
or a salty, moderate white wine. I love, Riesling. I love Southern Italian white wine, Portuguese white wine. My jam, and I love when I come back from Australia. Every time I smuggle in, don't tell customs, but I smuggle in a handful of really weird, unusual Australian wines, and I just like to blind people with them
Yeah, that sounds
because I'm
fun.
a bit of a brat when it comes to wine. We spend a lot of time with a lot of wine people, and I always just like surprising people. So on a Tuesday night, I love Coravin. I'm in love with Coravin.
Yeah.
Um, my Tuesday night drink is a glass of generally something Italian and white. I love the wines. I love Feldi's, Greco. I love Donna Fugata's, Antiglia. I love Grillo as a variety. And then high acid reds. I love Etna Rosso. I'm a big fan of, Victorian Shiraz from Australia from the cooler climates. And, you and I bonded over champagne. So what can I say? Just can't afford
Yes.
it. I like to drink it, but I can't afford it.
Definitely champagne in the mix. Yes. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure talking to you today, and I can't wait to hang out with you again.
JC, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so maybe work life balance has become a buzzword to bolster self care consumerism. But that doesn't mean we don't need help balancing hustle culture, aka toxic productivity. While it may seem like we're all living a glamorous life to those who are not in the wine community, we know that we work hard: the tastings, the conventions, the traveling, the dinner parties, always having to be on. We need time off, time to regroup, dry months outside of January, and sometimes the space to say no thanks, even when we love what we do, or especially when we love what we do. What are your thoughts? If you liked today's episode, we'd love to read your reviews and hear what you think. And hey, why not tell your wine-loving friends to check us out too? Remember, you can subscribe to this podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. You can also go to winemag.com/podcasts for more episodes and transcripts. I'm JC Tops. Thanks again for listening.